welcome back to the deep dive. We spend a lot of time on this show talking about the what and the why of the world. We look at history, we look at tech, psychology. But today we are going to look at the how.
To deep down how.
Right. And I don't mean how to fix a toaster. I mean how the actual operating system of your brain constructs reality.
It is a bit like looking at the source code of the human mind, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are popping the hood on the engine room of human language. And I have to say, the source material we have today, excerpts from a text called Movement and the Structural Configuration of Theta Theory, is dense.
Oh, it's heavy.
It looks like a math textbook had a baby with a philosophy treatise.
It certainly does. It's technical linguistics, specifically syntax. But despite all the jargon, the story it tells is, well, it's incredibly dramatic. It's a story about strict laws, bureaucracy, and the very specific architecture that lets us mean anything at all.
And the central conflict in this story seems to be between two systems that, sound like they should be best friends, but apparently they don't even talk. We have movement and we have theta theory.
Right, and the mission, so to speak, of this deep dive is to understand why there's a wall between them.
A separation of church and state, if you will.
That's a great way to put it.
So before we get to the wall, we need to know who's on either side. Let's start with the movement. To me, that just sounds like, words shuffling around in a sentence. The cat sat on the mat versus on the mat sat the cat.
That is the surface result, yes. But underneath, in that engine room, movement is a very specific mechanical process. In the framework we're discussing, movement, sometimes called attract or move, is driven by what we call morphological features.
Features, like I'm a noun or I'm plural.
Exactly that. Or I need to be in the subject position because I have case needs. Think of movement as the bureaucratic side of language. It follows very strict rules. The text mentions terms like move F or greed.
Greed. I love that linguists use that word. It makes words sound so selfish.
In this theory, they are. The principle of greed essentially says that an element, let's say the word John, only moves to satisfy its own requirements.
So it's not moving to help out the verb.
Not at all. It doesn't move to make the sentence sound poetic. It moves because it has a checkbox on its own form that isn't checked yet, and it needs to go somewhere to get it stamped.
So movement is a selfish, rule-following bureaucrat. It's the DMV of the sentence.
That is a harsh, but, a pretty fair comparison.
Okay, so that's movement. Then we have the other player, theta theory. This sounds a lot more mystical.
It's definitely more substantive. Theta stands for thematic.
Right.
This is the system that assigns roles. If movement is the bureaucracy, theta theory is the casting director.
The casting director.
It decides who plays what part.
So if I have a sentence like, the chef cooked the soup, theta theory is what tells us the chef is the agent, the doer, and the soup is the patient, the thing being acted on.
Precisely. It assigns the meaning. Who do what to whom. And the core thesis of this text we're looking at is that these two systems, the bureaucrat and the casting director, operate in completely different rooms. They do not talk to each other.
They're mutually exclusive.
Totally.
Which is wild to me because when I speak, it feels seamless. I don't feel like I'm doing two separate things. But the text talks about domains.
It does. It distinguishes between the internal domain and the checking domain. The internal domain is where the casting happens. That's where roles are assigned.
The factory floor.
Yes. The checking domain is where movement happens. That's where grammatical features get inspected.
Okay, I want to use an analogy here to lock this in. Let's say a car factory. The internal domain is the assembly line. That's where you put the engine in, you put the wheels on, you decide this is a truck, this is a sedan. That gives the car its identity. That's theta theory.
Correct. That's the base identity.
Then the car rolls off the line and goes to the inspection station. They check the emissions, they check the brake lights. That's the checking domain.
That's movement.
Perfect. And the rule this text is laying down is, you cannot install the engine at the inspection station.
Exactly. You cannot give the car its identity, its meaning, once it has left the assembly line. If you try to bolt on a door while you're testing the emissions, the whole system just rejects it.
The text uses a formula for this, the chain condition. It looked like CH equals alpha 1, ... alpha nan. It gave me high school algebra flashbacks.
It does look intimidating, but it's just a map. A chain is the history of a word's movement. Imagine a word starts at the bottom of the structure and moves up. That path is the chain.
Okay.
The position at the very bottom, where it started, is called the foot of the chain. That's the alpha n. And the text is adamant. Alpha n receives a theta role.
So meaning happens at the bottom, at the very start.
Yes. The position at the top where it ends up is alpha 1. That position enters into a checking relation. That's where the grammar police check your paperwork.
So to go back to the chef cooked the soup, the word chef actually starts somewhere deep inside the structure, gets its little badge that says agent, and then it moves up to the start of the sentence just to satisfy the grammar rules.
Precisely. And this implies something huge. Movement is purely a last resort. You never move to get a meaning. You only move because you have to.
You move because if you stay at the bottom, your paperwork isn't signed.
Right. You have unchecked features, but you don't move to become the agent. You already are the agent.
Which brings us to the raising constraint section. The text gets really strict here. It says a raised element, something that is already moved, cannot get a theta role.
This is that separation of church and state in action. Once you leave the base position, once you're off the factory floor, your identity is locked. You can't pick up new roles on your journey.
So if I'm a word and I'm moving up the ladder to get my grammar checked, I can't stop on the second floor and say, hey, can I also be the receiver of the action now?
Nope. The text says that the head of a chain, the word in its final moved position, is not a configuration that can accept meaning. It's strictly for checking.
This sounds great in theory, but I mean, how do we know it's true? The text actually runs a simulation, a kind of what-if scenario to test the limits.
The John HIT experiment, example 113.
This felt like a heist movie where the plan just goes completely wrong. Walk us through this.
Okay, so the text asks us to imagine a hypothetical verb. They write it in all caps, HIT. Now, this verb has the meaning of someone hitting something, but structurally, this rogue version of HIT lacks case features.
It's off the grid. The bureaucracy doesn't see it.
Right. So normally, a noun like John needs to check its case. It needs that stamp. This verb, HIT, cannot give that stamp.
Okay.
So the scenario is, can the word John move into the specifier position of this verb HIT just to pick up the role of hitter? Can he move only to get a meaning?
So he's not moving for the bureaucracy. He's moving for the role itself.
Exactly. And the assumption is, well, maybe he moves there, gets the role, and then just moves again somewhere else to fix his grammar.
A little hopscotch move.
And the text shuts this down immediately. It calls the resulting sentence deviant.
Deviant. It sounds so judgmental.
It just means the derivation crashes. The brain can't process it. And the reason is fascinating. The text says, surely no strong feature of the target is checked by raising to the spec, HIT position.
Translate that for us.
It means that because the first move didn't satisfy a bureaucratic rule, it didn't check a feature, it was illegal. Remember, greed.
Movement is selfish.
Julian only moves to check one of his own features. He does not move to get a theta role. And since moving to HIT doesn't check a feature, greed says, stay put. So John doesn't move. And if he doesn't move, he never gets the meaning. The whole thing just falls apart.
So the system is just incredibly rigid. You can't cheat. You can't move just because you want to be the hitter. You have to follow the bureaucratic procedure first. And if that doesn't work, well, too bad.
Exactly. Meaning is a base property. It's tied to where you are born in the structure. You can't acquire it later.
It's basically genetic.
In a linguistic sense, yes.
Now, this leads to a bit of a puzzle. Because we always hear about economy in language. The idea that the brain is, efficient. It wants to do the least amount of work possible.
The economy of language, yeah, it's a massive concept. We assume the brain calculates cost.
And moving things costs energy, right?
Cognitive energy, yes.
So let's look at a really simple sentence. John likes Bill.
Okay.
In the structure we've been describing, John starts low in the verb phrase to get his meaning. Then he moves high to the subject position to get his grammar checked. That's a move. That's a long trip.
It is. It's a two-step process.
So why doesn't the brain just insert John at the top? Just plop him right into the subject seat. That would be one step. It's shorter. It's more economical.
It would be a shorter derivation, yes. And usually, the principle of economy says, shorter derivations block longer ones. If you can do it in one step, you aren't allowed to do it in two.
So why are we allowed to say John likes Bill? By that logic, the shorter version should be the only way.
Because of the crash. If you insert John directly at the top at spec, he checks his grammar, he's got his case, he's happy bureaucratically, but where is he relative to the casting director?
He's in the inspection room. He's not on the factory floor.
Exactly. He skipped the internal domain. So he never gets a theta role. He has no meaning. He's an argument with no role.
And the text says this violates FI.
Full interpretation. The interface requires every noun to have a role. If John shows up at the end without a role, the system says, who are you? What are you doing here? And the derivation crashes.
So the shorter way, the supposedly economical way results in total gibberish.
Correct. So the paradox is that the longer derivation, the one that costs more energy, is the only one that works. The text explains the longer derivation is allowed because the shorter one fails to converge. It doesn't produce a valid output.
It's like driving. The GPS always wants the shortest route. But if the shortest route goes off a cliff, the GPS will, reluctantly give you the longer one.
That is a perfect analogy. The John likes Bill sentence is the detour that avoids the cliff.
The text also throws in a name here, kitahara, and mentions procrastinate, which, frankly, is my favorite linguistic principle.
It resonates with a lot of us, yeah.
What does procrastinate mean here?
It's all about timing. The idea is you have overt movements, things that actually change the sound of the sentence, and covert movements, which happen silently in the brain after the sentence is, pronounced.
Right.
Overt movement is expensive. It physically costs more. So the principle of procrastinate says, wait, if you can check a feature silently, later on, do it then. Don't move now if you don't absolutely have to.
So the brain is constantly running this cost-benefit analysis. Can I wait? Is this the shortest path? Will I crash if I take the shortcut? And it does this for every single sentence we speak.
Every single one.
Yeah.
In milliseconds.
That is humbling.
It really is.
I want to shift gears to the visual part of the text. Because understanding where these meanings come from, it seems like it requires looking at the architecture of the verb itself. The text talks about Larsonian shells.
Ah, yes. The work of Hale and Keyser. This is where we stop thinking of words as flat beads on a string and start seeing them as, 3D structures.
Before I read this, I thought a verb like hit or cook was just a block, a simple building block.
Turns out it's not a block, it's a house. A transitive verb 1, where you do something to something else, is a multi-layered structure.
Describe the house for us.
Okay, imagine a two-story structure. On the bottom floor, you have the main verb, a big V. This is where the core action lives. And the object, the soup being cooked, is down there on the bottom floor with the verb.
Okay, bottom floor, verb and object. Got it.
Then there is a second floor, and this is defined by a light verb. It's written as a little lowercase v.
A light verb. What's that?
It's a functional element. Think of it as the causative part of the structure. The main verb actually travels up from the bottom floor to attach to this light verb on the second floor.
Okay, so the verb itself moves up. Who lives on the second floor?
The agent, the chef, the doer. The text says the external argument sits in the specifier of this light verb v.
So the chef is upstairs, the soup is downstairs.
Right. But here's the part that just blows my mind every time. The text argues that agent isn't a label. You don't just stick a sticker on the chef that says agent.
What is it then?
Being an agent is the interpretation of standing on the second floor. The text says the agent role is understood as the interpretation assigned to the VVP configuration.
Wait, so you're saying meaning is geometry?
Yes. Meaning is geometry. If you are standing in that specific spot on the second floor, the brain interprets you as the doer. If you were standing downstairs, you'd be the one being acted on. Your role is defined by your coordinates in the structure.
That implies that you can't have an agent without that second floor.
Exactly. You need the architecture to create the meaning.
This leads to the section on hidden transitives, which I found to be the most matrix moment of the whole thing.
It rearranges how you see reality a little bit.
The text talks about intransitive verbs, verbs where there's no object, like I laugh or I sneeze.
Yeah.
Simple, right? I'm just laughing. I'm not laughing at anything.
Or so you think. The text argues that these verbs, specifically unergatives, are actually hidden transitives.
Hidden transitives.
Remember, if you are an agent, if you are a doer, you must be on the second floor of a Larsonian shell. That is the rule.
Okay.
So if I say I laugh and I am the doer of the laughing, structurally I have to be on the second floor, which means there must be a bottom floor. There must be an object.
So when I say I laugh, my brain is actually constructing a sentence like I did a laugh.
Essentially, yes. The structure contains a hidden object, the laugh itself, that allows the geometry to work. You are the agent of a hidden event.
That is wild. So there's no such thing as just doing. To do means to do something, even if that something is invisible.
The text suggests that only unaccusative verbs where the subject isn't really a doer, like the vase broke or the ship sank, are simple one-story structures. But if you are acting, if you are working, playing, speaking, you are building these complex, multi-layered shells with hidden objects.
And if a transitive verb fails to build this shell,
then the text says it is meaningless. Not just wrong, meaningless. Because without the geometry, without the upstairs and downstairs, the agent role simply cannot exist. It's like trying to have a penthouse in a building with no floors.
It's conceptually impossible.
Yes,
This brings it all back to that separation we started with, the internal domain versus the checking domain.
it does.
This elaborate geometry, this house with the hidden objects and the light verbs, that's all happening in the internal domain. That's the factory.
Yes, that is where reality is constructed.
And movement. The shuffling of words to the front of the sentence. That happens afterwards.
Yeah.
That's just the logistics of getting the thought out of your mouth.
That is a beautiful summary. Theta theory is the architect designing the mansion. Movement is just the moving trucks bringing the furniture to the right address, and the architect doesn't drive the truck.
So let's zoom out. We've been deep in the weeds of V's and chains. Why does this matter? Why should the person listening to this care about the architecture of a verb?
I think it matters because it reveals the incredible complexity of what we think of as simple. We walk around thinking we're just talking. We think language is easy.
We do it without thinking.
But underneath that easy surface, your brain is executing a program of staggering complexity. It is maintaining a strict separation between meaning and mechanics. It's calculating economy to the millisecond. It's building invisible geometric structures just so you can say, I laughed.
It's like finding out that walking to the mailbox requires solving advanced calculus with every step.
It effectively does. It shows us that we are running on this rigorous, logical system.
Yeah.
Language isn't random. It's not just a bag of words. It's a machine.
And it's a machine that defines who we are, literally, by assigning us roles based on where we stand.
Exactly.
You know, that idea of hidden transitives is going to stick with me.
It's a persistent thought.
So, here is a thought to leave you with today. As you go about your day, doing simple things, I drive, I eat, I work, ask yourself, are you really just doing one simple thing?
Or is the hidden machinery of your mind forcing you to construct invisible objects and complex geometries just to exist as an agent in the world?
Are we ever truly just being? Or does our grammar force us to always be building?
That is a heavy question.
It is. But that's why we take the deep dive. Thank you for exploring the engine room with us.
It was a pleasure.
We'll see you on the next one. Keep thinking.